Good morning, everyone. My name is Anya De Cunto, and I work at Eurocities as Funding and Financing Coordinator. I'm supporting Annalisa in the work that we are doing on Horizon Europe and the mission on climate neutral and smart cities. I will take the first 15 minutes to do a little bit of an introduction on Horizon Europe and the mission, because many of you still mentioned that you might have some doubts or some questions on what is exactly the mission and what does it entail. If you're already familiar with the mission, now is the time to go and take a cup of coffee. I would like to thank you very much, Ilias and Miguel, for helping me managing the webinar. And if you have any questions, you're all muted. So you need to use the chat at the bottom side of the screen. We will bundle similar questions together, and I will do radio style interview to Annalisa during the second part of this webinar. So yes, we can go to the next slide. So yeah, just a little bit of some housekeeping. You are all muted. You are not able to interact with us with the microphone. If you have questions, you can use the chat, and then I can unmute you. I can give you then, if you have especially maybe very complex feedback or very complex questions. As we are going to be many today, I also invite you to just join me by email, and we will come back to you with more complex answers. The presentations have already been sent with transfer link, but we will send them again. This presentation is being recorded, so if you need to quickly leave, don't worry, you can relook at the video afterwards. Ilias, next slide. So just a little bit of the agenda of today. As mentioned, I will take the first 15 minutes for a basic introduction. Apologies if for maybe some of you this information already well known, you're already really familiar with them. And then the star of the day, Annalisa will go and really explain what is happening right now and the next steps of this work. And then will be, most of the time, we really want to hear from you. If you still have questions, if you have doubts, if you have feedback to give to us, this is a co-creation exercise, is a co-creation process, and that's why we are putting quite a lot of effort in keeping you updated and keeping you involved in this. So next slide. So just again, very, very basic. What is Horizon Europe? I hope many of you are familiar with Horizon 2020, which is the current research and innovation funding program of the European Union. This is a centralized funding program, which means, contrary to Cohesion Fund, is managed directly by the European Commission and its agencies. And it's the European Commission, the main organization responsible behind agreeing, for example, on the calls and on the topic. We already have a proposal for Horizon Europe, which is the follow-up for the next 7 years, so from 2021 to 2027. There is a proposal on the new structure and on how it will look like, but we don't have an overall budget of the European Union currently approved, which means that until this final budget is the overall envelope of the European Union budget is approved, we believe there can still take some changes on Horizon Europe. However, I believe 99% we are there. And the current proposal for the budget is 100 billion for the period 2021-2027 to use for research and innovation really on the ground. So next slide. It is important to notice that the role of cities in this research and innovation funding program has changed quite a lot in the last years. Some of you might be familiar with the 7th framework program. This was until 2014. It was a program that it was really mainly dedicated to research, to university. Sometimes you had interesting projects where the few cities were involved, but it was mainly the university come with research and solution for cities. Eurocities did a big lobby effort to mention that you cannot do research without the people that are using the results of this research. So we are moving towards instead a funding program that will look at having cities more and more as full partners of projects, as it is for some of you already right now. We heard we have city of Brno, if I remember correctly, that is currently involved in Ruggedize, so one of the smart cities project. We have many projects dedicated to nature-based solution. We have many projects dedicated to air quality. Recently, we have been very successful in lobby also for projects on food in cities. And these projects really see the role of cities as full fundamental partners in research and innovation. And this is the very start for why Eurocities got so much involved in this mission and Horizon Europe. So next slide. So where is the mission coming from? It was a long process. This is similar to the role of cities in those. This is just some of the report and some of the thinking of researcher behind the idea of having mission in Horizon Europe, which I will explain just later. And these are just some of, if you want to get to know more about the thinking behind the mission and why we wanted they come up with this new idea. So we have the LabFab app report and the mission-oriented research and innovation true booklet by Mariana Mazzucato. That is the main thinker behind the idea of really working in mission. So next slide, please. What are our mission? So the idea is really that we need a new approach to research and innovation, missions that are bold, inspirational, with a high societal relevance, with a clear target, measurable, and in a very dedicated time bound. They have to be ambitious, the man of the moon idea, but still realistic. So with clear research innovation actions. They have to be cross-cutting, many different sectors and actors, and they have to drive bottom-up solutions. So this is what mission should be. Next slide. And in this long co-creation process of researcher and academia and cities and Eurocities, they came down with 5 missions. So Horizon Europe, the next research and innovation funding program, among many different topics that have already been identified, should put some of their effort in achieving these 5 overall fundamental mission for society. And you can see there is a mission on adaptation to climate change, a mission on healthy oceans, a mission on cancer, fighting cancer, a mission on soil health and food, and the mission that we are really all working today is the mission on climate neutral and smart cities. So these missions are areas, and then we have to this mission have to be defined, and a team of 15 experts was selected to define each of those missions. So in the next slide, you see that for the mission on climate neutral and smart cities, 15 experts were selected. And one of the experts was a big competition is our fantastic Lisa Boni. That is not only one of the experts, but is also the rapporteur of the mission on climate neutral and smart cities. So as mentioned, is an assembly of top experts, but also many co-creation processes that took place across Europe. For example, during the Research and Innovation Days last September, we had meetings with many of you during our environmental forum, during our Smart Cities forum, and we had different webinars where we heard constantly what is your ideas and what you would like this mission to look like. So in the next slide, what this mission fundamentally entails. So it's still open process, is still under discussion. As I mentioned before, the overall envelope of budget of the European Union, especially with the current crisis, is still unsure, is still uncertain. But legally, in the legislation related to Horizon Europe, is written that 10% of each year funding dedicated to research and innovation calls for proposal will be dedicated to the mission, to the 5 mission. So what does it mean? Call for proposal in Horizon Europe, at least 10% each year has to be dedicated to reaching the mission objective. This what I call dreaming small, because what we want to do is dreaming big. We don't want this only 10%, which is still a big amount of money if we think Horizon Europe is 100 billion euro for the moment. But we want it to be a strong mobilization of different type of funding, different type of financial instrument from the European Investment Bank, the work of the Green Deal that is ongoing. We will see if it will continue, maybe the work of the Recovery Fund that is currently being discussed for the post-COVID-19, which still aim at having a green and digital transition, a green and digital recovery for the future, for the post-COVID-19 crisis. So a stronger mobilization well beyond this 10% that is legally, officially there. So different funding program, different instrument. In the next slide. So yeah, just a little bit more, again, from the legislation, what our mission, even if we hope we can go even beyond this basic dream small approach. So what does it mean? Specific calls in Horizon Europe or other program will be launched to achieve this mission result. With identification of the partnership. I had a discussion with Anu last week. What are these partnership is another instrument, but very much connected. As I mentioned, the use of different type of funding, and of course the structural funds are going to have a fundamental role, we hope. And also national research and innovation program. And of course the strong influence of the international agenda and the overall world where we live, and different initiative that we have to look at nowadays. So next slide. So these are, you will receive this presentation, and if you want to really go to look at the basic of the budget proposal, the current budget, or what is the mission-oriented policy, or what is the current proposal for Horizon Europe, you have here the link. Once again, we are living in a moment where the European Commission is thinking about a new budget. So there was a proposal which was discussed for the last 2-3 years. The budget proposal was not approved yet. And right now, because of the COVID-19 crisis, in the next maybe 2 weeks, they should come up with a new budget proposal. So only by the end, and if this proposal will be approved, by June, we will have a new budget by 2021-2027. I don't think this new proposal will really touch Horizon Europe, because this is a program that was already approved. What was only missing was the money, how much money. But yeah, nothing is certain until the final approval has been set. So this was a little bit of an overview on Horizon and the mission approach. And in the next slide, I will really go in the nitty-gritty detail, nitty-gritty if we can, on our proposal for the mission on carbon neutral and smart cities. So as I mentioned, there is currently quite a lot happening on this. Many of you are part of the Smart Cities project. Many of you are involved in the Circular Economy project. Many of your cities are involved in the Circular Economy project, the Nature-Based Solution project. So there is already quite a lot happening. Next slide. In the last year, with quite a lot of work from Annalisa and the mission board, but also many of you that contributed, we brought down these areas of work to an idea to reach 100 climate neutral cities by and for the citizens by 2030. And as we mentioned, it should be an holistic and transformative approach. Currently, we have too many projects that are looking just at mobility, they're looking just at energy, they're looking just maybe at water, but now we are really moving towards climate neutrality in an holistic approach. And that's what we are proposing in the mission. So next slide. I hope many of you have read the document, and they have looked at all our graph on what we of our vision for this mission. is a cities that aim at climate neutrality using an holistic and systemic change approach. Again, what is happening at the moment, and many of you know because you're the one working in the city, is that maybe we are very good in our transport system, maybe we are very good at refurbishing one area of the city that can become maybe with a positive energy district, but we are still lagging behind in systemic and holistic approach in Europe on an average. So next slide. And what are the objectives of this mission is support, promote and showcase 100 European cities in a systemic transformation towards climate neutrality by 2030. To offer the cities the financial means to achieve such a mission, and by financial means I mention once again is not only Horizon Europe, but really making this attractive for the European Investment Bank to work with you, for example. Help build a multi-level co-creation process in a climate city contract. I will go back to this climate city contract idea. Of course, you cannot make a climate neutral city without citizens. So we are really thinking of a new role for citizens, a bottom-up initiative and innovation. This mission has to be by and for the citizens. But we are also looking at a just transition. This is something that, again, for those of you that follow European Union legislation, there was discussion on a just transition fund. We are not all starting from the same point. We have very ambitious cities that maybe they will become carbon neutral already by 2029, 2030. And we have cities that are starting from different points. So we are thinking really of a just transition. And also the capitalization on the many existing climate initiatives. As you know, Eurocities is heavily involved in Smart Cities project, but also the Covenant of Mayors and many, many others related to sustainable mobility, for example. And of course, a strong collaboration with European businesses. Again, we are really thinking of quintuple helix approach to innovation, where we have businesses, research, citizens, local authorities, and strong climate environmental consideration. Next slide. This is a complex graph made by my colleague Nicolaus. And just to try to put in graphic what I just mentioned of the idea of having climate city contract, to have direct funding, to look at the obstacles, for example, related to legislation and standards currently in place to reach this mission, the synergies with many EU policies and instruments, the work of the national level, the work and the cooperation between the local level and the national level, to look at different sources of funding, but also to look at the issues related to, for example, the use of standards, and here the role for SENS and ELEC, and many different city standards that have been currently, they are maybe competing even with each other. The most important graph is the transformation of data, governance, and resources, and really, again, the idea of achieving this complex systemic transformation. And once again, the role of the business community and the academic community all together. Next slide. And if you have questions, you can start to use the chat to have them, to ask them. We will try to bundle them together, especially if there are many similar questions, to answer them just once. So the most innovative idea, part of this mission, is the work of the climate city contracts. Many of you cities already have contracts. We had in a previous webinar quite a nice intervention from Rotterdam and the contract they have in the port area for climate neutrality. But we want to expand this concept. So the idea of climate city contracts is a commitment of cities to transform themselves, adopting new governance models and through responsible use of digital technologies. Ensure that these commitments are at all the level, so local policymaker, regional policymaker, or the different level of stakeholders and citizens. and channel all the condition, funding and financing for participating to this mission. So next slide. And thank you very much for Catherine to answer that you can download the slides. So this idea of climate city contract is still in the making. We haven't come up with the final solution, and this is also from you today to hear more about what do you mean, what do you feel this climate city contract should look like. It's, as mentioned, it's a strong co-creation process with all of you. But the climate city contract, the idea is to do it by, yeah, and Annalisa, I give you the word. If you want to say something now, feel free. Otherwise, let me finish the presentation and then I give you the word to continue with the next steps. Annalisa? I have unmuted you. Feel free to go on.
Yeah, no, it's fine, fine. You finish and then I'll pick up.
Okay, well, it's just a basic introduction. So next slide. I'm almost at the end, actually. In the next slide. Yeah, so one of the questions that comes very, very often is what do we mean by cities? We are perfectly aware that if we're looking at cities like the Greater London Authority or Paris, it is very difficult to reach this target of climate neutrality by 2030. So we are proposing a concept of cities which is very open. We mean district, a city, or a urban area. And for example, a city district, a neighborhood, or a zone. A city represented by a government unit, for example, a municipality, or a conglomeration or function area, consisting of many different neighborhoods. And this is mainly to take into consideration, indeed, the different starting point of European cities and also the different size. We have 1,000 cities in Europe and some above 5-10 million and some smaller than 100,000. So next slide. I leave now the word to Annalisa so this was the basic overview, again, because some of you have expressed that you still have some doubts and concern about the mission and the work. So now we go instead on the second part of the presentation, which is really about the next step, what's happening recently and the next steps, and especially what are we going to work on in 2020. And for this, I leave the word to Annalisa, that is the expert and the rapporteur on the mission board on climate neutral and smart cities. Annalisa, the word is yours.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Anya, for having done the first part. For those that hadn't followed the previous episodes of this series, the series on the mission. Yeah, and also thanks to you to participate in this. You're quite many people, so let's see how we can give as much information as possible and also reply to questions as much as possible. So without going back to what Anya has already said, sorry, I closed the door because without going back to what Anya has already explained, maybe I can just clarify a couple of things. One thing is what I see also on the chat from Budapest, for instance. The idea is that this mission should demonstrate that actually cities can help the EU to achieve the strategy on decarbonization by 2050 faster than 2050, and they can contribute to that in a very strong way and in a sort of relevant and important way. And this mission in a way wants to put together in each city all the sort of ambition, willingness, strategies, things that are already there and that cities want to step up to get to the 2050, but by giving a stronger push. And that's why the 2030 element. If we said 100 climate cities for 2050, this would be part of the normal, strategy of the EU. Everyone, in theory, should be carbon neutral by 2050. In this case, we wanted to add the ambition of 2030. Of course, we understand that for big cities, this, and Anja touched this during her presentation, we know that this is not possible for an entire urban area that is big as Budapest or Vienna, or a big city that the most of our members. And that's why we said it would be on a district, so that we can see and we can measure the ambition and the implementation of this ambition on a district for 2030, and of course, embedded in an overall city strategy for 2050. So that's the sort of basic criteria. So this 2030 is a very clear and strict element. It's the one that will be, let's say, it's the main criteria of the mission. So there has to be a strategy for a specific district. If you're a big city, that says we will be climate neutral there for 2030. So there's no sort of compromise on that. That's one thing. The other thing is, of course, I can go deeper into the climate city contracts, because this wants to be a little bit different to all the sort of commitments or initiatives or tools, let's say, that have been put in place that cities have with their own national authority or any other thing. So these contracts wants especially to ensure that it's not only that the sort of weight and pressure is not only, and commitment is not only on the city authority, but also on the national authority / regional, according to the territorial organization of a country, like federal, for instance, and the European Commission. So we want a sort of very clear agreement that, between these three parts, for sure, that can really help pushing the mission in that specific city, and that can make this ambition a reality. And that means that the city authority, in this case, comes with the overall, its own alliance at the local level, at the urban level, with all its actors that go from, as Anja said, for sure, in a big way, the citizens, but also, R&D community, private sector, whoever is at the, all the stakeholders that are part of the urban governance element, and that, the city comes in with that, the Commission comes in with whatever, in theory, the synergy between the different instruments that at EU level can be channeled through the contract, and the same goes for the national. So that in a way, this contract and this idea of mission can become the sort of catalyzer of many things that touch both the sort of strategy, commitments, pledges, roadmaps that already exist. So they get together, and many of them are sectorial, as Anja said, and also funding. Yeah, so that the funding comes from different. There's a business plan that puts together all the different sources. So that's why it's ambitious. Yeah, you understand that. So it's not a simple exercise. On the contrary, but we were asked as board to be ambitious and to propose a sort of man on the moon in the climate cities sector, and that's what we did. Now, let's say the level of realism in this process, it's all to be cross-checked. Yeah, first of all with the current context, because of course the crisis will not help to just move forward with the MFF that had been identified, and so we don't know what's going to happen, but we hope that sort of decarbonization element will stay strong. And on the other side, it wouldn't be an easy how do you say, exercise anyway, because it means putting together different levels of, decision makers, different levels of funding. And so that in itself is a sort of mission impossible, if you want it, but I'm joking, it shouldn't be impossible, but that's a whole sort of work to be done. So that's the main, the two elements I wanted to stress. Now, how so this doesn't want to be just a Horizon Europe sort of initiative. It starts from there because it was launched by the previous commissioner for research and innovation, but it's slowly going beyond, of course, Horizon Europe, because of course you can imagine with the money that Horizon Europe offers, and if even that amount, 10%, is still on the table, will remain on the table. It's nothing if you think that you have decarbonized an entire district in your city. You know yourself how much it costs, to renovate buildings, to go to sustainable mobility, to do all these kind of things. So the point is not to see Horizon Europe as the place where the money will come. It's more like making sure that if you decide to go towards this sort of mission with a district to become climate neutral by 2030, you will, through the process, ensure work together with the national and regional authorities and the European Commission to work towards the leverage of the funding that is needed by the mission to become a real ambition. So it's to be built. There's nothing. It's not an initiative where you say you push a button and you will receive the funding to make your district 2030 climate neutral. So in a way, don't come into this sort of idea thinking that there will be funding for that and that's your solution. It's more using this as a sort of European process to help go in the direction that you were already going into, but faster and in a sort of more solid and Europeanly created and boxed, let's say in a positive way, framework. So it's really that the spirit has to be that. Now, we have produced this report that I hope you've read, because otherwise we talk about nothing. And we try to summarize at the beginning. Now we are, as a board, which our board as such will end its mandate at the end of this year. So we still have to produce a report by May, and in May all the 5 missions will have to produce a report that will feed into, all going well, a communication of the Commission to the Council and the European Parliament about the 5 missions, meaning what are we doing with these 5 missions, what are we proposing. And once we have this communication, we will have much more, we will have the commitment of the European Commission and the member states stronger and more grounded into making these missions happen. So for the moment, this is the time, and that's why we called upon you to create a sort of virtual group of people that are really interested in the idea of this mission, to continue the update and continue listening to you, to the questions, to the idea, because still 2020 is about designing the mission itself. So now, as you see on the screen, there are open issues that we are working on. We are getting to some of the answers, but it's still work going on. As I said, it will be more or less for a first step finalized by the end of May. But so the selection of cities is one of the big issues, right? So how do we get there? How is it gonna work? It's not an easy thing, because also this is something that is more in the hands, let's say, of the Commission and the member states. But the idea would be to have several, let's say, more than one step for this process. Meaning, if we have, for instance, we could start with a sort of open call for anyone that, of course, has this 2030 district or city, if you see what I mean, in mind and wants to achieve that. You have an open call that would allow you to then prepare an application where you would have the main elements of, the climate city contract content, which I will go back to. So, what is the ambition? For instance, I don't know, in Turku, I want to make climate neutral the whole city. I'm just inventing, huh? Don't take me. Huh? So. You do that, you explain, basically you make your case in terms of the baseline, the strategy, what would be the plan, what would be your consortium at the local level, show that there is the national and the European elements that are involved, so that you are part of a complex, let's say, framework, and how you think you will achieve that. So a sort of idea of making the case for your ambition. And after that, the open call will be more going into the sort of second phase, if you are convincing enough, let's say, still to be seen who would be the jury and these kind of things. But the phase 2 would be really more to start going into the details of a pre-contract and then a contract. And once a contract is defined with all its elements, then you get to the point where you sign it and the implementation starts. So it's really a process that could follow an application phase, a co-creation phase, where you work with your own local consortium, where you understand where you place yourself as well in the European context, in the national context, the kind of links you can make, and then the sort of once that stage also let's say passed, you go to the sort of signing of the contract. So that's the sort of idea that are coming to the table. Now the number 100 is a number that is there to give a sort of ideal target, because it's not easy to get now in 9 years now, if you want to a totally climate neutral district. I keep on calling district, but of course, if there is a city that decides to become climate neutral as a whole, it's not excluded. But I'm just thinking, having in mind that our membership is mainly done by, mainly organized around big cities, I'm calling districts. So we will see how many really want to respond to the open call, and if there could be support by the European Commission. This is what we are trying to push for, to make sure that, for instance, the Green Deal call, which we don't know much about yet, and there as well, the COVID crisis has a bit disrupted all the plans, but maybe the Green Deal call could support a little bit the cities that want to participate in this open call and get some, I don't know, a sort of voucher to help, to get some help to put together the governance, the strategy, and basically go to the step where they have to prepare the real application for the contract. So this is still to be seen, but the idea is not to say we start, this is still discussing, but I think we'll get to a point where we don't say it's zero cities and 100 cities in one go, but it's like as far, as soon as they come and they're ready, they become, they go further in the stages. But all this has to be aligned, as I said, with the, with all the EU instruments, so it's a bit, it may sound messy, but this is where we are at the moment. But okay, we will come back to you with all, with as much as possible answers to all your questions. But one thing I wanted to say today is that so it's important for me to know that there is a community there in Eurocities that is interested to follow and to feed into and to bombard us with doubts, questions, points, so that we can take all that into the sort of work, and it really is a sort of help to make reality checks. But yes, so this will continue. We'll try and have them on a regular basis, but also without even not through webinars, but by sending you documents so that you can come back with clear contributions, questions, and so on. And the second thing I'd like to do is to create a smaller sort of expert group of, rather than cities, really experts that can help me go through, the different things, and people that really have the time, because it's very time consuming. I mean, I'm working weekends, evenings. Luckily, I have a good team that supports me. But I mean, it's really about having, for instance, a document with all the chapters of the contract developed, and I need to have feedbacks in 2 days. So I need to have a group of people that can actually be very reactive on that, very proactive. So if you're interested, don't hesitate. Also, because you think that in your city you have the backing towards an idea of 2030. Yeah, that has to be a very strong element. If you don't, it's a bit more difficult to say yes, we go now, or we can get prepared. But of course, you never know. I mean, it's very important also to stay tuned. That's why we want to create these two levels, yeah, which are useful both.
Miguel and Ilias are helping me, and they will save all your questions, and we will try to come back to you and indeed create this question and answer area, because most of the questions, they keep on coming back also from the previous webinars that we had in November and December.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the really important thing to note is that this is a first, I think, for the EU. Yeah. And in a way also for some cities, because it's, I mean, and for us too, to be part of something like that. So we just have to go with the flow, be as connected to the ground as possible, and you are so precious. And try to see where this thing will take us to, considering also the context, which will make at least the sort of transparency and easiness of navigating through the EU instruments more difficult. But it's a first for the EU, because this idea of missions they've never come up with. It's a totally new thing. So it's not because we don't want to be clear or because we're not doing the right work. It's really because it is a challenging process, but that's what makes it also interesting to be part of, because it's new, and it's very ambitious, and I think we need to show that cities can really help the climate neutrality fight.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Annalisa. Again, there are many more questions, links with current initiative like the Green City Accord. Absolutely. Yeah. We are involved in it. We are even the leader of the current project, so no problem. There will be links. And as the size of the population...
It's all part of this baseline that I mentioned. So it's not because you're involved in one initiative that suddenly this becomes a competitor. It's more about seeing this as a sort of catalyzer of everything else.
And as a minimum size of the population, you mentioned 100,000 inhabitants.
I said 50,000, yes.
50,000, okay.
Yeah.
So, and we don't distinguish between citizens and residents and working population yet.
We haven't gone into that.
No.
And also because I believe that this element of the selection of the district and so on will be very much in the hands of the Commission, I'm afraid, and the member states. But we will make a proposal, and all ideas you have, please come back. But I think they will be tempted to use whatever is already in use today, like through the Smart Cities Lighthouse projects or other measures, like for the innovative actions and things like that.
Yeah, for example, in the Urban Innovative Action, they count the official number of the population by Eurostat. So that's probably one of the measures that is already existing.
Yeah.
Brett is also mentioning
the urban agenda. Yeah, okay. The urban agenda is totally different. The urban agenda is a governance on legislation, you know. So, but of course, it could be connected, but it's more about putting together member states, commission, and cities to lift barriers to specific legislations. It's not only about climate neutrality.
Okay, so my suggestion is that we close it here. As mentioned, you're more than welcome to come back by email, and we will collect all these questions. And I understand that we haven't answered all of them. Many of them are similar. They are something that we are still investigating ourselves. There are no one answer at the moment. So thank you very much for keeping with us and being patient and yeah, understanding that this is a co-creation process and many different actors are involved.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, I have to say, not to have enough time and enough answers, but that's what I mean. We need to work together to get to that. So if you need to also call me or have bilateral exchanges, really don't hesitate.
Yeah, there are still questions coming in, but I think we close it here for today. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for keeping with us, and thank you very much to Annalisa, to Ilias, and Miguel for helping you, and for all of you for being so active in the chat and being so interested in this work. Thank you very much.